I've always been a fan of the Prince of Persia series. Since Sands of Times was released in 2003, I've been completely hooked on platforming around Middle Eastern environments. After The Two Thrones was released as a final hurrah for the trilogy, I was worried that Assassin's Creed would continue to be the spiritual successor to the Prince of Persia franchise. Luckily, I discovered that a new Prince of Persia game was in the works and was finally released on December 2nd earlier this month. The game does have a few faults that may turn off newcomers or the hardcore audience, but at the end of the day, Prince of Persia presents a heartwarming tale that you won't forget anytime soon.
Oh, it's not where you come from, it's where you're going that matters.
Unlike the other games, this latest installment has nothing to do with the previous story arc. You still play as the prince in an undisclosed region that's assumed to be Persia, and you run across walls and cut dudes in the face. However, the prince is a different prince, and ironically, actually isn't the prince of anything. You're traveling through canyons looking for your donkey when you run across a girl named Elika.
Hi.
The prince decides to follow Elika due to her pretty looks and ends up getting sucked into a quest to steal the god of darkness, Ahriman, into the Temple of Light.
Ahriman? The big bad god of darkness? Kills people, destroys cities, scares naughty children?
The plotline is your typical save-the-world shtick and never differentiates itself from similar stories. That's not to say that you won't have an incentive to progress through the story. Instead of a gripping plotline, Prince of Persia provides two excellently crafted characters to discover. Both the prince and his partner Elika are forced to work with each other the entire game. Elika must travel through various fertile grounds and heal the lands of darkness, while the prince fends off all the bad guys. Similar to Eco, the prince will lead on, while Elika follows closely behind.
You go. I'll follow.
However, unlike Eco, Elika is very capable. She can mimic all the prince's moves and even helps out during combat or platforming by using magic or a double jump. In addition to her usefulness, players are also given the option to talk to Elika whenever they want. At any point in the game, pressing either of the L buttons will initiate a dialogue scene. These conversations range from grim and serious to playful and hilarious.
S.
Scar.
No.
Scarf?
No.
Shrine?
Aha! No.
I give up.
It's through these conversations that the narrative aspect of Prince of Persia is fleshed out. This isn't so much a story about saving the world as it is about the growing relationship between the two and how it all wraps up. However, there are a few problems with this. One, these conversations are entirely optional. I suppose if you don't want to sit through hours of dialogue, you're given the option to skip it, but if you run through the entire game without viewing a single one, the ending won't make much sense and could potentially ruin your entire experience. Second, the prince is voiced by the same actor that did Nathan Drake from Uncharted, so I had some difficulty imagining them as two separate characters. And third, the prince has a very modern, sarcastic attitude. This is completely opposite of what the previous prince's attitude was like, and although it's not that big of a deal, you just get the feeling that it could have been done better.
Say, the next time you want to win your daughter back, you could try just giving her a pony. The apocalypse doesn't really cut it.
Regardless, the prince is still a great character. He just doesn't fit in as well as he should. Mechanically, Prince of Persia works how it always has. Platforming is the same as always, with only a few minor additions being made. There are various plates throughout the world that act as barriers for when you can access new areas. Some of them provide pretty stellar effects, while others just simply launch you into a different region on the map. Other than that minor add-on, you'll still run across walls, jump on poles, and climb around vines. That's not to say the platforming needed to change or isn't any fun. It's great, there's just nothing new. The combat, however, has been drastically changed. Instead of crowd controlling multiple enemies, you're focused on 1-versus-1 battles. This eliminates the frustrations of dealing with 5 different guys taking turns slicing at you, but the fluidity of combat is also lost. Attacking enemies feels clunky and leaves the prince open to attack rather often. Most of the time you'll attempt to attack an enemy, miss completely despite being right next to him, and get hammered in the face with the counterattack. Regardless of how you do in battle or platforming, you can't die. Throughout the entire game, Elika has the ability to revive the prince from danger. If he does poorly in battle, she uses a magic attack to save him, and if he jumps off of a ledge, she'll grab his hand and pull him back to safety. It's nice being able not to worry about redoing difficult sequences over and over again, but if you want a challenge, you won't find it here. Personally, I'd rather have an easy game that provides entertainment than a difficult one I have to train at for many hours, so I didn't find the low difficulty to be a problem. It kept the focus on the game and the characters and not painstakingly retrying sections over and over again. Finally, the artistic styling of Prince of Persia is top-notch. For the most part, the game beautifully showcases its subtle cell shading art without going overboard, unlike games like Wind Waker or Okami. The only minor technical problem I had with the game was shadows. Characters look out of place when they're in dark backdrops, and occasionally you can see shadows bleed into the environment as you get closer. However, the only real problem I had with Prince of Persia is its loss of potential. Throughout the game, there are small bursts of creativity that are never fully realized. These bursts make me excited for a sequel, but act as a constant reminder that the experience could have been that much better. Other than that, another minor annoyance was the repetitive nature of the game. After each fertile ground is healed, you're forced to go back through the level and collect objects entitled as light seeds. This seems like a cheap way of lengthening the game, and even though I never got too sick of the process, I can imagine people with lower tolerance getting bored pretty quickly. All in all, Prince of Persia is a fantastic game. If you're on a low budget, be warned. The game only lasts 12 hours and has a fairly low replayability rate, unless if you want to unlock new costumes or collect all the game's light seeds. If you've been satisfied with the amount of content previous Prince of Persia games provided, this one is no different. However, if you're unsure whether or not you'll enjoy this game, you'll get the same experience out of a rental or a budgeted price. Personally, I'd have no problem paying $60 for this game again, even though it's short, due to the level of excellence it reaches, but that's just me. If you've been a fan, you'll continue to be one. If you've never got to play a Prince of Persia game, this is a great place to start. I fully recommend Prince of Persia.